I probably started writing around 1969, when I was 5 or 6, really early, you know, simple things, as one does at that age. But I started taking it very seriously when I was 13. And I remember, in fact, a poem I wrote called Strike, which is about marlin fishing, which is interesting when I look back now, because I was brought up in a very rural kind of psychology, hunting, fishing, that kind of thing. And later on, I became an animal rights activist, a vegan, and you know, I actually wrote a poem about sealing the gun, about, you know, melting it down and moving away from all that sort of stuff. But that first poem that I consider my first poem in the way I write, when I was 13, called Marlin Strike, was about catching a big fish and watching it die and thinking, you know, what's a trophy worth to see this? So that was my 13-year-old epiphany. It took me years after that before I kind of developed into a philosophy of life, but poetry has always gone hand in hand with the way I see the world and think about the world.
I used to go down to Kilkenny, where my father's from, and we were in the city one time with my aunt, and in a place called the Munster House, which is a fabulous old shop, and there was a camera on the wall, and I wanted it. And I was about 10 years old, and my aunt bought it for me. Anyway, it used 120 film, it was, you know, and so that's when I started taking photographs, and I was taking them all through my teenage years, and I got a present of a 35mm camera from a relation of my father's, Kowa. And when I went to college, I did journalism in college, and I cottoned on that a lot of the time I was sitting in the office, and that didn't appeal to me. So I decided to try and make a career in press photography rather than reporting. So I freelanced in Dublin for the year I was in college, and I got a job in Clare straight out of college as a junior press photographer, and went on from there.
I'm by nature a collaborative person. I like working with people. I like to share and learn, and maybe hopefully give a bit and impart a bit as well. When I saw John's photographs, which through our son Tim actually told us about John's book, his photographs of West Cork, and I got a copy and just it blew me away. I thought, you know, this guy can not only deal with light, he can deal with darkness, he can deal with all these shades in between of one extreme of illumination and so on and the other. And I thought, this is what I write about. I write a lot about light, how light affects place and how it affects people as well. And I went from that kind of realization that there's really something I can work with there to approaching him, and he was up for it. He's pretty collaborative by nature too, actually, and good to work with, you know, flexible. I think collaborations, if you have rigidity in a collaboration, you might do a project, but that's going to be it. If you have flexibility and discover as you go along, then you're going to do another book together, or you're going to do you know, come together as a band again, or you're going to do whatever it is, or do an art installation together. But flexibility is the key. Very flexible person, willing to also take a lot of time. He takes a lot of time composing his photographs. With a poem, poems are things of the moment, but they're also things that change over time, and you'll have to go where the poem goes as well. So there was a pretty good mix there. First we weren't doing a book, we were doing an exhibition with some, we'd have some photographs, and we'd have a few poems next to the photographs in an exhibition space. And as time went on, we thought, wow, you know, this really is a book. There is a conversation going on here that's bigger in some ways. It can still be an exhibition. I think it'd work well as that, but it's really a book. And a book for me is a way of bringing a conversation into focus. I use these kind of terminologies from a lot of years of collaborating with people, often across different mediums. So working with a musician, a composer, you know, they might be using musical notation, nomenclature. I'm using, you know, poetry and poetics, but there's a common ground. And talking with each other, conversing, how you bring it together, these are the common terms. So yeah, we found a common language between poetry and the image.
So we were communicating by email. He'd send poems, I'd send pictures, and I'd go to get the images to go with the poems, and he'd come back with poems to go with the pictures. And it built up over a couple of years like that. I was still trying to get pictures last February because it was such a bad winter. I've fallen way behind in the picture game, but anyway, I caught up in the end, and we got it done by the end of March. When I put the original proposal together for the exhibition, it would have been, say, March 2014, and March 2016 the book went to press.
The ghosts in my eye, sheeted, opaque, ectoplasmic, are wrecks by their hundreds in deep sea on rocks. A seal below the arch bridge bobs lively, then ghosts. Text lost from the old signal station, claws of land reach into the sea god's flesh. Veils and curtains winding back of sea to make great wave, cows verging on the amphibious, peering over cliffs at the incoming. We're all at the fences, the gates, safety a trick of the macula. An intertext, interlinear, hearing shanties and dirges with our enhanced hearing, lays to vessels cracked open, holy and unholy haunting together. My left eye a telescope, then tossed in the swell, peering through drowning. You collaborate with someone artistically, you get to know them in a way that you can't know in any other way. So, you know, someone can know someone for 30 or 40 years and they know them intimately and very well. But to work with them on a creative project, you get to know them in a different way. And it's a very interesting way because you have to have flexibility and you have to be able to cooperate in the things that matter in some ways almost most to you as a creative person. You know, they're your photographs, they're your poems. What happens to them says a lot about who you are. So you're entrusting something. It's a thing of trust. And one of the great things from working with John is I've developed an incredible sense of trust. You know, I trust him. And so we know each other in a way that we wouldn't know each other otherwise. So, you know, the trust thing, obviously great respect for his art. He's, you know, incredibly fine photographer with, you know, decades and decades of experience of all kinds of different kinds of photography, from portrait through to landscape, through to everything in between. So there's that. It's also developed a friendship that's outside art as well. It's just, you know, we can go and look at a few rocks, be happy, tell stories about the old days. They're pretty funny. So it's been good, and that's come about through art. That's come about through creativity. And so, you know, I mix with a lot of people creatively. It's what I do. Not always do you develop such friendships out of them. In fact, mostly you kind of interact and then you go your way and so on, and that's fine. But when something really works, then it is, as John has said, more than the sum of its parts. And that's, and that's I think, a statement about him as an artist and a person.
The phrase "a shared wonder of light" I lifted from one of his poems. When I was looking for a title for the book, and that just jumped out at me because it's just so obvious. It's perfect, you know, because it is a shared wonder of light, you know, and we're coming at it from different directions, different angles, using different media to share the wonder of light. And being a photographer, even back in the analog days when you actually physically worked with light in dark rooms, avoiding it and then using it to make prints and so on, it's light. It's like it's all around us. You can't touch it, but it's everything to us. It's life. And when you're taking pictures, it has different qualities, which I can now, at my age, having taken pictures over the years, I can know what the light will do, what it'll give me. Or John, he can imagine it from what he's seen. It's different way of working with what you see. Depending on what you see, what you see, what I see, different. Because it's an interpretive experience. Seeing we don't see with our eyes, we see with our brains. So that's mediated by so many different things, different experiences. So we see differently. The great services that poets do for a society is they point out things that the rest of us wouldn't necessarily see. Put it on the page, now you see it. Hopefully, in the best of photographers will do the same. You're taking a slice of life, a fraction of a second. Why that fraction of a second? Now, why not the one after the one before? It's gone forever. Whatever was there at that time is gone forever. But it's captured in a photograph, and it's a stillness that we can't otherwise perceive.
They were swept from the stone steps as the monolith watched on. All was agency and light. Plucked by the half-formed waves tap, ping at lower plants, frisson as grip fails, slip as seals scan the foam, and below, the freight of warm bodies cooling, lap on lap they swim. It grows late.